Everyone, welcome back to the Inkwell Studio. Now, this isn't my first black ink review video. Link up here, go and check my first one out. But I went through all of the black inks in my collection and narrowed it down to Platinum Carbon Black and also the Aurora Black as the blackest pigmented and blackest conventional inks that I have in my collection. But lots of you took to the comments and pointed out that actually I've missed out some of what you think are the blackest inks available. So I just had to go and check them out and do a second round 2 video with some terrifying conclusions. I've got a bunch of new inks from Platinum, from Atramentis, from Diamine, from Octopus Fluids, and also Lamy. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to get hold of Noodler's inks here in the UK. So today we aren't just swatching, we're going to dethrone the previous king. Let's see if you were right. Now, this time round, I'm going to use my conventional Clairefontaine 120 GSM swatch cards. I'm also going to do a comparison on some Midori MD paper. I'm using cotton wool swabs for the swatching here so that I can give you a gradient, but also test the chroma of each sample that I do as well. And we can do a direct comparison against the samples that I've got just here as well. So let's get started with Lamy's Obsidian, which is in a 30ml bottle. It's one of their crystal inks. And it's also one of the cheapest available here. So I'm just going left to right gradually, and we can see how that gradient forms. And already I can see that this is shading towards a blue tone. I'm just going to get some water on the other end. I'm just going to run it along that last part there. A bit more water, because I really want to see what colour comes out. And that really is looking quite blue. So just so we can see what it looks like with some writing, I'll do a few loops at the bottom as well. Next up, Octopus Fluid and their Elephant Black. And this is a write and draw, so it's a permanent ink. That's looking really black. It's shading a little bit at the bottom. It's looking really black. Again, I'm going to put water at the bottom. This isn't testing how waterproof it is because that ink hasn't dried. I'm just trying to draw out the various colours. So a noticeable difference in those two inks. Lamy, a bit more blue, and the Octopus Elephant Black. It's kind of got a grey-brown starting to come through. Next up, we've got Raven from Diamine. This is one of their forever inks, so this one is a pigmented ink as well. Again, it's pretty dark. It's quite black, but it is getting lighter as we move down. Wow, okay. And the colour isn't wanting to come out of this either. So I've put water on there, similar to the Octopus Fluids. A lot more grey came out on the Octopus Fluid. Whereas this one seems to be very fast drying. Be up there for pigmented. I'll do the same on this one. Okay, second to last is Diamine Document Black. This one again is a pigmented ink. Again, really black. This looks like it's blacker so far, or at least it's going on initially blacker than the Diamine Forever Raven. But as I did say, that one dried so quick. Plenty of water on that one. It's looking quite black too. Similar to Octopus fluid, that one has gone grey-brown at the bottom, where I put a bit of water on it to separate the colour out. And last up we have Chou Kuro, which translated from Japanese is super black or ultra black. This is the most expensive ink that we're trying out here today as well. Again, going on really very black this one is, but can't really tell until it's finally dried. Let's complete that one. And add some water along the bottom. And not much is separating from that at all. There we go. There's black coming off on the Q-tip, but adding water there, it really didn't want to separate. It's made the swatch of the top lighter, but hasn't really bled down into the water that I put just below like the other ones have. Bit messy, but you get the idea. And you know what? I nearly forgot. I've got Take-Sumi as well as a new ink. Of course, this is Pilot's Iroshizuku ink. They're black. Let's give this one a go because that wasn't in the previous comparison as well. Starting to lighten roughly halfway down and going quite grey already. Don't think this is going to be the blackest of blacks. But again, let's see how it fares when it dries. Try and get some of the colour out of this as well. So there we have it. Now 6 inks, and we'll let those all dry. We'll come back when they're fully dry and we'll do a comparison against Carbon Black. This is probably a good time to remind you as well that if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. And we'll come back and we'll look at those inks shortly. So just before we go through the black ink swatches that I've gone through today, I just wanted to have a quick look again at Platinum Carbon Black as the previous benchmark for Blackest Ink. The reason why I said this was the Blackest Ink previously was because it holds its colour quite solidly all the way down the swatch. You can see slightly darker patches at the top and at the sides where it's just got a bit more saturated, but it is quite consistent. The ink didn't dry quite as quick as Chou Kuro did, which means that the ink has lifted when it was wet. The writing, as you can see, is really black, and some of you also pointed out the feature of Carbon Black that I quite like as well, which is that it has this kind of grey sheen. In a certain light, it looks a bit like pencil. Grey sheen in pencil-like quality looks really nice on text when it just catches the light just right, and you get that kind of flicker of grey over the top of it as well. So I still think this is a really strong ink. It's about £19 that I picked this up for, so that works out 32 pence per milliliter. It's pretty good value as well in my book for a permanent pigmented ink. So moving on to the other ones, let's work our way from Lamy, where we started, Octopus, so on and so forth. So Lamy Obsidian. Whoever said that this is the blackest ink that they use clearly doesn't have that many black inks, because yes, you can see from the writing it is quite black. It's saturated, but it very quickly loses that black colour and goes more towards a shaded green. And you can see where I've added some water, green notes and blue come out as well. And in fact, I noticed this when I swatched several of the inks in the previous video. This one actually has a red sheen on top of it as well. And I think it was Diamine Jet Black that did something similar also. So is this blacker than Platinum's Carbon Black? Well, in my book, no, it is not. So I'm going to pop that to one side. Next up, we had Octopus Elephant Black. And you can actually see that some of this still looks quite thick and wet. And that's just, it's taking a very long time to dry in some saturated portions. And at the top where it looks like it might still be wet, it's not. It just has quite a thick paint-like consistency to it, this ink, which is really quite interesting. About halfway down the swatch, it starts to develop a bit of shading, and that's just where there's less saturation in the cotton bud that I was using. And when I added some water, it hasn't really pulled out any other colours. It's just essentially black and grey that's come out there. Maybe slightly brown it was when it first went on, but as it's dried, it definitely looks more grey and less brown. The text, really dark, saturated black. Now, this, particularly at the top here, is a very black ink. A similar kind of blackness that you get on the saturated portion of Carbon Black here, and actually when you put them side by side, that top half is actually blacker than Platinum Carbon Black. I think that the text is probably darker as well. Octopus Fluids Elephant Black is £14.50, which works out about 29 pence. So really cheap, this one, in comparison to Platinum Carbon Black that was 32 pence. I'm going to pop that up here. Then we went on to Diamine Forever Raven. It is quite black at the top, but then very quickly changes to a shading grey. There's maybe a slight reddish tone to it, very, very slight, nothing like what we can see with Lamy Obsidian. The text is very black. It's definitely not as black, at least it's not popping out as much as the Octopus Fluid. Maybe that's just because the dip pen had a bit more ink on it. This is very subjective, isn't it? But even where I was doing some loops there and you could see that it was more saturated, I think that the Octopus Elephant Black is a bit darker. So let's move that in that order. Diamantris Document Black. It looks like it's still wet at the top in some very saturated portions. Again, it maintains the black tone at the top, but you can see even at the top of the edges, it is taking a browny grey hue to it. It's kind of browny grey where I added some water to it. The black writing is very black. I'd probably say is slightly blacker than Diamine Raven. Is it as black as Octopus Elephant? I still think Octopus Elephant is blacker. And then we had Platinum Chou Kuro, the ultimate black. I put some water on at the bottom there and it dried so quickly that it didn't do any separation at all. When I was writing on, the tea hit that wet patch and it did spread out a little bit, but very black, very consistent across the board until we get 2/3 of the way down, and then it started to lose its colour. So maybe actually more consistency. Again, this is quite subjective. There may have been slightly more ink. It was slightly more saturated on the cotton bud on one versus the other. So definitely not scientific. But if you look at the text, I know that it looks quite fine on the Platinum Chou Kuro. So maybe not the best test of all. Octopus Elephant Black is looking pretty black to me. It's so close. It's so close between those two. Maybe Chou Kuro, because it's got finer text, is just slightly blacker. It maintains it for a little bit longer. I'm going to put them down in that order. Last but not least was the ink that I had forgotten about, which was Pilot Take-Sumi. And, well, you can see why maybe I forgot about it a little bit as well. Similar to Lamy Obsidian, there's other colours that are coming through there. There's a bit of a red sheen, similar to Lamy Obsidian as well. And it definitely is more of a shading black. The writing, however, is pretty black and similar to Lamy Obsidian. Is it as black as Octopus Elephant Black? No, I don't think it is. Is it as black as Platinum Chou Kuro? Again, no, I don't think it is. This is really so subjective, I've got to be honest, but based off the swatch, I'm going with no. Let's take a look at the Midori samples, and this has got all of the blacks in that I tried in the previous video, and also all of the new ones here from Lamy Obsidian downwards from there as well. You can see jet black from Diamine, really with that red sheen on top, and you can see that Lamy Obsidian not sheening red as much, but definitely does have a red tint to it. Some of these are a little bit wet still in the more saturated portions, but inks like Lamy Obsidian and Pilot Take-Sumi, which I actually sampled last, bearing in mind the similar kind of saturation on each of these, are much quicker drying. So if that's important to you, despite them not being quite as black as some of the others, they are good contenders. You've then got Platinum Chou Kuro, which is like looking into a black hole. That is really super black. Diamine Raven, a bit mottled. It's not as black as I think the other ones are, and that's more or less reflected in what we see on the Clairefontaine swatch. The Atramentis, yeah, that is pretty black, but I think the one that's really standing out for me on this one is the Octopus Elephant Black, and it just has that really black paint-like consistency to it. Yes, this portion here at the bottom and at the side here is still wet, but the rest of it where it's dry, that is a super saturated black with a bit of shine to it. Platinum Chou Kuro is definitely more of a matte black. So which of these is going to be the overall winner? Well, Platinum Chou Kuro, I think, prices itself out of many people's budgets at a whopping 75 pence per milliliter, whereas Octopus Fluids Elephant Black at a more respectable 29 pence is actually the second cheapest out of the ones that I've swatched today. I think is the clear winner. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And if you appreciate honest side-by-side comparisons that cut through the marketing hype, make sure that you subscribe, and we've got a lot more ink to get through this year. So thanks for watching.